We'd like to welcome you all to this third and final roundtable this year of PIMVendors.com. And on this day, we have headless and product information management as our topic of today. There's a lot of buzz around headless. And if there's a lot of buzz around a certain topic, it's always difficult to determine what it is and especially what it isn't. What it does and when it serves business and when it doesn't serve business and it's just a buzzword. We're going to cover that all today with our panel of 4 speakers. And I'm very excited to have people from both business and from the solutions side. I'm very excited to hear them all discuss this interesting topic. They'll do this under the guidance of Glyn Davis. Welcome, Glyn. Glyn, you are the founder of RetailInsider.com, and you are our moderator, have been a moderator for quite some roundtables. I would say, please introduce yourself and take it away.
Great, thank you. Many thanks, Stefan. Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for joining this roundtable today. Before I ask each of our panel members just to tell us a little bit about themselves, I'll just give a very brief bit of background on myself. I run a business called Retail Insider, which is a website of opinions and insights on the retail sector. We have a specific focus on technology and digital developments, and we also produce various reports. We have the movers and shakers in retail top 80, and we do a digital retail innovations report each year. We also host various events. We do breakfast and also evening events, which typically encompass wine and beer tastings. Which unfortunately, this is not going to encompass either wine or beer, but hopefully it will be just as interesting. Occasionally, I do get asked to chair roundtables, hence you find me on this event today. It's a pleasure to be here. Certainly hoping the next 45 minutes or so will be equally pleasurable for you as it is for me, and equally insightful as well for everybody on this call. We're going to be investigating the concept of headless, as Stefan just highlighted. There's no doubt it is a key buzzword in technology at the moment, and helping us to navigate around this area, we hope. We've got a great panel. I'll now ask each of the panel members to briefly introduce themselves and the organisation that they work for, and in no particular order. Morten, could you just introduce yourself, please?
Thank you, and thank you to PIM Vendors and Stefan for hosting this roundtable. So I am Morten Ness, the EVP of Technology at Bluestone PIM. We're recognized by Gartner, IDC, Ventana Research, and all of that good stuff. And Bluestone PIM is a part of the Mac Alliance and is also the only Mac certified PIM. And I'll explain why that is important in this setting in a very short time. The Mac Alliance is a group of now more than 50 forward-thinking technology companies advocating for an open and best-of-breed architecture called Mac. And Mac stands for microservice-based, API-first, cloud-native, and headless. So that's why I made a point of that. And I hope that I can bring some interesting views and contributions to this discussion. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Morten. And we're getting the first acronym in. In fact, 2 acronyms. So I'm sure there's going to be more of those this afternoon. And moving on, Odile, could you just briefly introduce yourself, please?
Yes, thank you, Glyn. So Odile de Vita, I work for the Pimcore. So the Pimcore, for who's not so familiar in the Netherlands, one of the largest department stores with also a big e-commerce platform. So we're live currently with web shops in 6 different countries and still expanding. In my role as a program manager and business architect, I'm responsible for all strategic programs involving external software. So did a large project on replacing our PIM earlier this year. And I hope to bring a little bit more to the more user perspective in this nice set with all the vendors. So thanks for having me.
Great, thank you, Odile. We definitely want the user perspective brought to bear this afternoon. Harry, could you do a brief intro, please?
Yes, Glyn, thanks. Okay, my name is Harry Verrossen. I'm the Managing Director for Dynamic Web Benelux. Dynamic Web is a ISV in this part. We deliver a all-in-one platform, including PIM and e-commerce. We both deliver headless solutions and non-headless solutions. We, in comparison to Morten on headless, we do challenge our customers strongly whether they're going to get some benefit out of going headless, or is it just a buzzword and a hype that they want to follow because the next door neighbor is also doing it. So that is one of my opinions, and I hope to bring some other insights on this topic of headless.
Great, thank you, Harry. I think that tees things up quite well. But before then, Dietmar, could you just do a brief intro, please?
So, hi guys. Thanks, Glenn, for introduction. My name is Dietmar Rietsch. I'm the CEO of the Pimcore company. Currently, the Pimcore platform is a platform for data management, experience management, used at approximately 100,000 companies worldwide, 110,000 companies actually. And we have been headless since 2009. So yes, doing fine. Thanks for the introduction, and thanks for being able to be here.
Thank you, Dietmar. We're basically looking to cover off 3 broad topic areas, which hopefully will satisfy everybody on the call. But I'm more than happy to divert off if we drop into other areas that the speakers take us down. The initial areas that we're looking to focus on, though, are basically taking a look at the brief outline of what the headless market actually is, to try and get some definition on that. And then how headless works in practice. And then finally, we'll look at what the future developments of headless could look like. I'll basically be throwing a variety of questions at the panel, but we'd also like to hear from panel too. So if you do have any thoughts, questions, opinions, ideas, then please tap them in to the where we've got the private chat, or we've got the comments. So I guess the comments is probably the best place to put your thoughts, questions, and opinions. So hopefully we'll be able to bring those points into the conversation as we go along. So moving on to kick things off, taking a look at the brief outline of the market. So we're going to try and get our heads around, pardon the pun, our heads around what exactly is headless. And I guess against that is what is headless not on that. Morten, do you, sitting in my top left-hand corner, do you want to just get the ball rolling on that? What's your view of what it is? And then obviously we'll bring everybody else in and see how it has similarities or differences to the way you view headless.
Sure. Well, there are many aspects to this, and of course, you have headless commerce, you have headless CMS, and you have headless PIM, and those are all slightly different. But the main idea, or where it all came from, I think, was the separation of the presentation layer from the logic in a customer-facing setting, where you saw like from the all monoliths that it was a pain. You had a lot of pain with updating the monoliths, and you wanted to change a banner on the front end, and suddenly your payment option or your payments went down, and you didn't know what was going on because it was all in one monolith, and so that's originally where it comes from. And then I guess over the next hour we'll discuss all these other facets too of headless CMS and headless PIM too, and headless commerce.
Great,
so,
thank
yeah.
you. Thank you, Martin. Harry, you pretty much aligned. I mean, that sounds a pretty straightforward sort of description of what we've got. Certainly, that's the idea, isn't it?
I think that is the basis of headless. That's right. What Morten says, customers wanted to have more flexibility on the front end. And so they took off the presentation layer on it, and they just exposed their data through APIs. And then, we had people delivering or engineering a delivering engine. The question is it the right approach? Aren't the present solutions not flexible enough to generate that flexibility that you want to make sure that when I change a banner, that my shopping cart or my conversion button doesn't drop off? There's a lot of pros and cons, but I think that in some cases, people are taking the decisions on the wrong. Are they taking them from a technology point of view instead of looking at it from a business point of view? So what does it generate more on the business end to go headless, or just stay with the presentation layer that is supplied by the vendor? So that's a challenging point, I think, sometimes. And there's a lot of people that can't place a number at it when you ask them for it. So I like to challenge my customers on it. When I enter up into a meeting with a marketing person, we want to go headless. Explain to me what is going to bring you more with the headless architecture than, or is it just a buzz that you want to embrace because your next door neighbor is using it?
Yeah. Thank you, Harry. I guess I'm going to, Adil, I'll come to you and how do you view as a business operator? How do you view that? And do you find it's sort of more buzz for throwing it at you quite a lot? How are they describing it to you?
It's in preparation to this session. I also discussed with some of my colleagues that are actually more on the business side. And if I ask them what is headless, they have absolutely no clue. And if I try to explain to them, like, you're going to get more flexibility. Okay, great. Then, but how are we achieving that? And what I feel from business side, that it's really difficult for the end users, and so that's maybe not so much for the PIMs, but it definitely is for systems like a CMS, that they don't really understand if you do the transition what it requires for them, because they actually like the sort of like built-in all-in-one flexibility. While I absolutely agree with your definition, Morten, and I think that there's pros and cons for both sides, both for business and technology, but it depends on how to prep your organization for it and which roles you have around it. Because I think in my organization, where we're pretty I think far with our architecture, headless when it comes to CMS is not incorporated yet, and that is really difficult for business. So I was thinking it would be really nice to have a business description, like not a tech description, of how headless works for them. And I don't have it. I'm already explaining that.
Thank you, Adil. Right, Dietmar, that's your challenge then. You got an answer for Adil. Really?
So basically,
how
that's what we see every day. Everybody talks about. Everybody talks about headless, and it's a system architecture style. So I'm all in with Morten, I'm all in with Harry, and I am really all in with Odell. So it's about decoupled commerce. It's about decoupled systems. It's about separating components of the e-commerce stack so that you gain more flexibility in the front end. So it's about the differentiation between the back end and the front end, and between all of those combinations that you need for doing e-commerce on the web, for example. And that is decoupled commerce, actually. And that's what's meant that way, so that you don't communicate by joining in front ends, diverse front ends into each other, but to talk so that the different systems talk to each other via APIs, so via interfaces, collaborate, exchange information, and that you have a front end, which is really the presentation layer, that is really, that is really flexible and really is talking to the right components in the back end. Decoupled commerce.
Thank you, Dietmar. I think,
Glenn, I would like to add one thing to what Dietmar said.
Broadband is the great decoupler at the moment, isn't it? Right. I think what
Dietmar is telling is also generating a gigantic complexity in an IT architecture, which a lot of companies might not want to might not want to be able to have. That is.
Because it sounds.
But on the other
great,
hand, I have to reflect here. I have to reflect here. It's about, Morten said it before. It's about microservices. and it's about the cloud. So it's not like that in past things that you have, the Magento, for example, on-premise installations. It's a different way of bringing those e-commerce experience live. And that's the whole thing about the whole system. And therefore, all the supply chain, so all the components that bring in product data, like product information management, or bringing content management, like headless content management, have to bring together all the material to the presentation layer. So it's in terms of a system architecture, it's quite logical, because if you want to update all of your components at once, you will fail. If you update in a headless environment only your microservices, you will win. And that's it. So at least I think for that.
Deal, has he sold it to you?
I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm not.
I'm just wondering whether you're a buyer now.
No, it's. I don't have anything against headless. Don't get me wrong. I just think as a company you need to be ready, because we're all talking about how nice it is on the back end, but what about the presentation layer? So if you don't have in your company your product teams and your UX team aligned with this concept, I think you're really missing out. So if you do not have these people on board and really thinking about how to, present all this information, it's gonna go a little bit wrong. So yeah, so I'm all in. I'm buying it, Dietmar. Yeah, I mean, if it's right.
Odell, yeah. So yeah. I just say to you that I honestly have to say, so I'm not sharing no bullshit with you. We got approximately 150 requests per day as the Pimcore company. So that's what we get in. And in current days, I would say that at least 60 to 70% is looking for a headless cloud-based solution in terms of product information management. That's what we see from even if they don't know what headless is and what microservices first means and so on, they are requesting that and they want to have that style.
I have a topic, because if we're specifically talking about PIM, I would like to challenge that most companies have a way better of knowing how to deal with product information, having it already not incorporated, while that might not be the same if you go for e-commerce or CMS.
Yeah,
it's a statement
the comment
I would
on
like
that.
to...
Yeah, I think we're moving the discussion into headless. What is headless PIM? Because that's definitely different in my mind than headless commerce and headless CMS. And I think that you have that as part of your questions later, Glenn. So
yeah,
so
we are going to move on to that specific. Yeah, thank you, Martin. We're going to move on to that specific bit shortly, but I guess we're just trying to get our heads around the broad concept of headless at this stage. So actually, just moving things on slightly, when would we say it's relevant for businesses, and when it's not relevant, and whether that's for business, a type of business, or whether certain circumstances, does it fit more comfortably within a certain type of business? Morten, are you? Where would you see it being quite a cozy fit?
Yeah, good question. I think that definitely tech savvy, tech forward-leaning companies have the most use for a headless approach, and also where you're in need of a lot of flexibility. So what I'm thinking is that if where you don't need it, if you have your story set and one channel, and the future for what you're gonna do, like on an e-commerce in an e-commerce perspective, if you know what you're gonna do. But if you don't know what you're gonna do, and you don't know what's happening in social media, and you don't know what's the best channel to sell in around the corner, then I think a headless approach makes more sense.
Would that mean, though? I guess it's clearly easier if you don't have the legacy business in place, and if you were a young startup business, then you would more likely take this as a natural course, and is a much tougher challenge if you've got the legacy.
Yeah, but also comment on that is that also sort of the beauty of headless and microservices also, or that whole architecture, is that you can eat the elephant one bite at a time. So it is possible. It is much easier to move towards a composable architecture than it is to move the other way. If you're moving to monolith, that's always going to go off with a big bang. But moving towards a composable architecture is always possible to do one bite at a time.
Okay, great. No, thank you, Martin. Harry, are you of that same opinion? Just when you with the initial question of what's most where is it most relevant?
I think it is relevant if companies are, if you're talking about Internet of Things applications, that I might see as a relevance. But I think that the majority of wholesalers and retailers that are doing commerce are overestimating headless environments. I think that if you look
overestimating the value.
Yes, overestimating the value, especially if you look, for instance, now at research has shown that 45% of all new businesses go through Google. So people start searching there. That's where their tour is going to be to get to the right product. And in order to get to the right SEO and to get into Google on the first page, you need to be a lighthouse green e-commerce environment. And for that, 9 out of 10 times, you need some standard templates that are provided by the vendor. If you're going to do that, building that's going to be a tremendous complex situation. And on top of that, if you are a startup, I would definitely not go start up with a headless environment, because as a startup, you want to make speed, you want to go to market quickly, because you're excited on your new product, and headless just takes more time to set up properly. And I don't think that a startup would have, should take that time.
Okay. Dietmar, yeah, so you're nodding. Is that, you agree with Harry?
Yes, I agree with Harry, but I more agree with Morten about that. Whenever I'm talking to Gartner, as Morten already said, or to Forrester and to the analysts, there's a fundamental shift of the paradigm. Things like composable commerce will be there to stay because it's the right way to do things. E-commerce framework works, for example, against monolithic e-commerce solutions like Magento. Component-based PIM solutions against monolithic, for example, Informatica, IBM solutions. So there is a fundamental shift going on. And of course, this shift is transported to the audience, which are IT people and CDOs and CTOs of companies. So that's what I meant. And that's why I can also, say that Morten is in the right way, because they want to have different ways to create their e-commerce experiences. And I have to say, PIM is one of the essential components of that. Therefore, we have to reflect that also our solutions have to change. Look at the whole ecosystem. Look at Akineo, for example. Look at Informatica. Look at them. Everybody is shifting their solution in the way of decoupled systems, and that's the way how it is. So we are living in an industry that changes rapidly because it's all about the customer experience, and so we also have to change as a vendor in a certain way.
Great, thank you, Dietmar. Adil, from obviously you've got the business perspective. Where would you see it most relevant, and also, I guess in the context of your own organization, what's your how have you gone into this area?
I think when it comes to my organization, we were facing a couple of challenges that I think that would directly move us towards headless, because it's really difficult to overcome otherwise. So one is that if you talk about certain type of data that we had in our PIM, so we're talking about pricing information, we're talking about the images, and of course the product information itself. We have certain requirements how to bring it to our website. And for example, we were facing a lot of issues with our previous PIM that, with just new the synchronization. If something went wrong, then you're missing your whole batch. So we were going for streaming integrations. If you want to have that type of integration, you have a certain requirement from your, from your system, because then you're saying, yeah, we just want to store it and provide it to our, in our case, Kafka bus, and take it from there. But that is because for us, it needs to serve different parts of our architecture. And that is the way that for us was working. And it would just take too long. It was having too many risks to do the more like old-fashioned way to bring it from A to B to C and further. So that was for us one of the things that was pointing towards headless. On the other hand, also for images, we took the decision to say we really want to decouple that, meaning we want to manage, maintain, store it outside of our PIM system. So that was our decision, because we use images on multiple places, and the preference was to have more control over it. So then again, from the requirements, it logically flows into the decoupled solution. If I would not have a large tech organization to support this, it would fail. So I think with my organization, everything was in place, so you could really go for it.
Yeah. Thank you. The question we've just got coming from Kavstav, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, which may be a follow-on from what you've been describing, Adil, is we're moving from to decouple headless. How do large organizations shift from delivering projects to delivering digital products? Is that a relevant point, a relevant question anybody wants to take up? That's all. No? No? I don't think I've got any take as such. Certainly from the products that are out there, it's almost like, as a business journalist, I see so many things which are promoted as being headless systems. Is it just been bandied around by a lot of organizations who it's questionable as to whether they are headless, or are we talking about different levels of headless here in this context? Dietmar, take your nod as an okay to take that.
So I would say that headless is, finally, in 2009, when we started our application, or when we created Pimcore the first time, everything was about API first at that time. So we were talking about SOAP-based interfaces. We were talking about RESTful interfaces. And nowadays we are talking about GraphQL-based interfaces. It's, what we feel is headless is about the separation between front end and back end, but on the other hand, it's about separation of data from processes, basically, so that bridges information between each other with a machine communication, which are actually APIs, so application programming interfaces. So we are talking about machines talking to each other and transferring data to each other. So we have done this in 2009 already, and nowadays it's GraphQL, it's more fashioned, but I would say it's the same thing actually, talking between layers and actually hiding the complexity from the front end.
Great. Thank you, Dietmar. Morten, Dietmar's broadened the definition to some extent there, hasn't it? Say it's not a simple there's not a simple definition to it. Do you going back to the initial point, in terms of systems claiming they're headless and not, how do you find the situation out there?
Yeah, that's a good question, and I think that it's the headless term has been thrown around all over the place. People are talking about it, and it I think also that it means different things to different people and different companies. Like the traditional thing is the separation of the presentation layer, like we talked to separated from the technology. And but when you that's certainly true for commerce and for CMS. That's definitely true. That's probably where it all started, at least the thought process. But as Dietmar said, these thoughts are not new. Like being headless, you can bring those thoughts back to, I guess, the 60s, because the first services made on the internet were definitely headless. You didn't have a UI for them. It was just machines talking to machines. So this is not something new. But then again, an interesting thing that I was thinking of is this discussion with headless PIM. What is headless PIM? Because I think that's a little bit of a different discussion. And for us, we are so-called API first. That means that everything we do are APIs, not 20% or 70% or whatever. It's just everything. And that also means that everything you can do in our UI is also available through APIs. And I think that's different than many other PIMs, because they have some services that they can provide headless. Yes, that's true. They have some services, but it's not true headless in my mind, because that means that you have to have everything available, and that's what we provide. So that's sort of, I think, where we differentiate a little bit from some of the other vendors. So that's my take on headless PIM, at least. Yeah.
Thank you, Morten. Harry, is that what's your take on that and the everything? Morten saying the whole of his sort of pure headless creation there is very much API driven. How are you saying?
I think that if you look at PIM, we're talking about single source of truth of data, product information, and you want to make sure that that data is on every place where you use it is the same. So consistency is of big importance. That basically makes a PIM by default a headless solution, because whether I'm presenting my product information in a commerce shop to add on a product, or I'm sending it to a data pool or to a marketplace or a distributor, the data needs to be consistent on all channels that I'm using it. So in that sense, it's important to be open. In some parts, you're publishing it in a headless situation, and some parts you're, on our end, if you look at our platform, our commerce environments can be run headless, but we also have templates, design templates, which are, like I said, Lighthouse Green for Google, and is integrated on the PIM. So PIM is feeding the product data into the commerce solution. So it's a channel in that sense. If I take out the commerce part, I still have PIM, and I'll just feed it in any format that you want it, and I'll take it back in if it's enriched or changed by any other system. So in that sense, it's a headless solution that we also support. But we tend to, and that's also a question that Odile asked in her organization to the business. Do you understand what headless is? And nobody understands it. So that is something that we as a vendors should be aware of, that it should not be a techie play yard, but that we should be able to help our customers find the answers, the ROI, the return on investment on, if you go headless, what will it bring you additionally on business, or should I not? Should I take a step aside of headless? It's a challenging topic, especially for business to get your hands around it.
Thank you, Harry. And I will now bring Adele in as we move on to the middle section, which is how it works in practice. And just wondering, in terms of, does headless make sense in an IT environment that we could sort of say is not quite ready for headless, in terms of the fact it's got no headless e-commerce and there's no headless ERP, etc. How do you go about or considering bringing in this headless thinking? Adele, how would you say that one would be tackled? Or does it make sense is the question?
No, I think it depends on your company culture, because there are companies that are really, that are tech driven. So that are actually, built up from the technology idea and all the possibilities that are there, and sort of like the business follows. In the more old-fashioned companies, the business is there and tech is like 10 steps behind. So I think if you're an organization with a really strong tech footprint, for example, like my organization, it's possible to start with sort of like doing your tech preparations, but then in time take along your business, and ensure that they know what's how it is helping them, but also what is needed to overcome certain challenges. In companies where I used to work before, so larger, with more legacy, I would definitely say that it has no success other than a situation where there is a clear issue, challenge, or objective that you can't reach without going headless. So again, for me, it depends on the type of company, on the culture, how to approach it.
Yeah, no, thank you, Adele. I mean, culture is always a much tougher thing to deal with than technology, isn't it, at the end of the day? Does anybody else want to take that one on from Adele? The question again been, does it make sense in an IT environment that's not ready for headless? They've not got e-commerce in place or headless, operating with headless ERP. Are you in agreement with Adele? It does depend on the culture and circumstances of the organisation. Morten?
I think Harry got ready to talk there.
Oh, did he? Right, sorry.
No. Morten, come.
No fighting. Who wants to go first? Morten.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely think she's onto something there. But I also had a comment on that. That was a delayed comment, really, on what Harry was saying, because we're sort of sliding away from this headless PIM topic that we were starting on, because there was a separation there between talking about product data and features, and that are two different things. And I think that's a very interesting topic not to skip over, where we see, for example, in RFIs, RFQs that were in this fall with large global retailers, that they are searching for a headless PIM features where they can build their own workflows on top of the PIM instead of relying on the UI that we provide. Of course, we have a UI, and that brings us to another point here. But I think that's a very interesting thing that we see in the market now, is that it's not only, like Dietmar said, we see 60-70% they're talking about headless, but not only headless commerce, not only headless CMS, but also true headless PIM features. So I have an example of what that could be, because that's kind of hard to grasp. And that could be like, we have a feature where we use the AWS recognition service to scan the dam, the pictures, and they are auto-labeled and then put back into the dam, so it's easy to search, right? And that's sort of a headless feature. That there's no UI involved, there's nothing involved there, and it's just something that automatically happens over APIs, where we sort of enrich over APIs. So that was sort of my delayed comment to Harry there, but I definitely agreed with Odile also.
Yeah, no, thank you, Morten. I was going to then move towards how headless works for PIM in terms of, and one of the areas was just in terms of, do you require an interface to change product information, for instance, to manage hierarchies? That was the bit we were going to move on. But I mean, Harry, do you want to drop straight into that one? Into the question being, do you need an interface? For instance, do you need an interface to change product information?
I would like to know, why wouldn't an interface be sufficient to manage my product information? If more than say, okay, well, we have RFIs where the customers want to build their own workflow solution. What are they then so definitely so specifically looking at that capability that it can't be done by, what is so special about workflow, with all due respect? We're moving
nothing special about. It's nothing special about workflow. Workflows. It's the special thing is how they want to integrate the PIM in their own way of working. It's not PIM workflows. It's how they, as a global retailer, are reaching the market and how they are enriching data, and that might be that other parts of the company or other people or other functions are actually enriching data in a different way than we can even imagine. So it isn't like just the workflow in a normal sense, like a PIM workflow. It's just the whole, I guess, DNA of the company, how they work.
Yeah, Odile, do you want to step in there?
Yeah, I was thinking that maybe interesting to share a discussion that we had. We had, for example, different parts of the organization that provide product information. So in the beginning, when we were talking about the PIM, what we were actually designing was saying, okay, we should have a front end where all our different departments, so not only our product editors or copywriters can enter product information, but for example, also our buyers. So there is one sort of like generic front end that provides the data to both like our ERP system and the PIM. And I think that would illustrate what you were just talking about, Morten. And yeah, so we discussed about it, and then at the end we didn't go with it, but that was because it was bringing us too much complexity in our processes. But I think if you're different organized as a company, that it would, for example, be of great benefit, and then you don't want to. Because then you're more creating like a general front end for multiple systems instead of having people use multiple systems, because they're often business users and they like to work with one system and not three. So I completely recognize that.
Thank you, Odile. Yeah, Dietmar, did you want to step in?
Yes, I would like to immediately step in to that what Odile said, because she's completely right. So it's about, we see that product information management, digital asset management, multi-channel publishing, and all of those topics are like middleware. It's middleware, and it's between ERP and front end. So let's put it in this way. And it has to be tightly connected through different workflows, through different, through different applications itself. So it has to be an application that is really able to connect. So we are talking about headless, and that's the reason. It has to be connectable in a certain way. It has to talk to ERP, it has to talk to CRM, it has to talk to front-end technologies. So it has to be connectable through interfaces, programmatic interfaces, so that it can provide data in our product data in terms of product information management to third-party channels. And as we are living in an omni-channel environment, that's a critical application that we have to take care of, because we have to deliver the right information in the right context, in the right channel, at the right time, and the right audience. So, for example, in terms of personalized product information management, which is also a trend for the future. And that's it. So it's in our team a middle layer, the middleware, and therefore I can fully agree to Adele. It's sitting there and has to do so many things, but it has to adapt. It has to adapt to the back end. It has to adapt to the front end. It has to adapt to the BI, the analytics, all of those marketing and sales components. And therefore, headless is actually, as Morten said before, it's actually the only choice. And that's why it's going into that direction, because marketing and sales gets so complicated. You probably have seen those real big charts about marketing technologies. So there are so many vendors in there, and that's the reason why we have to do it that way. And that's the reason, the Mach Alliance found that term, or I don't know, Gardner and Forrester preach that.
Right.
So it's more than just technology. It's another way of doing things.
Actually, the next step we're going to come on to, which is an extension of what you were saying in terms of future developments for headless. How do businesses get to headless? One of the points is, which I know Adele has actually mentioned, is the culture and the legacy thing, which can be a much bigger deal than the actual technology. Is that going to be a primary obstacle or a primary point of attention that businesses will need to deal with in terms of the future adoption of headless? Adele, I guess it's a bit of an extension to what you did touch on the point earlier.
Yeah, and then again, I mean, I'm repeating myself a bit, but it depends on your company, because I know a lot of companies, and it doesn't matter, how long they already exist, that have like huge complexity and legacy that makes this difficult. So that was what for us, when we were thinking about, it would be great to have like one, when I'm talking about front end, it's like user front end for all product information and provided to all the right systems. For us, our e-commerce landscape is really nice and new fashion technology, and that wouldn't be a problem. On the other hand, our ERP is there for a long time, and that would make this really, really difficult. So yeah, in my organization, this was definitely the risk of all the processes that are coupled to the current setup. So changing the technology is not the issue. It's changing all the processes around it. So you really want to make sure that it delivers value for different areas of your business to get everyone on board, or have like a really strong leadership that is towards tech innovation that pushes it. But otherwise, it's going to be a disaster if you try to push it from tech and it's not. Yeah, it's not supported, because then it's painful for everyone.
Do you foresee the point whereby you could describe the entirety of your organization as working with a headless infrastructure?
To be honest, I think with my organization, there will be a point, we're not reaching it yet, that we will feel the pain. But now, because in our whole e-commerce, it works really, really good, and only the ERP side is sort of like holding us back. It's not that painful, but I think over the years we will face different issues that will make us that we have to change
towards a headless type operation. This is what you're saying, yeah.
Completely headless, because now we have it on the e-commerce side partly. I mean, we it's all API based, but not not our complete corporate IT.
Right, lovely, thank you, Adele. Morten, I mean, is that music to your ears to some extent in terms of the fact pain points will be will be enjoyed by retailers for some time, and then they'll ultimately have to go down this route?
Yeah, I guess so. In some sense, it is, but it's not for every purpose and everything that headless is always the answer. So but it is a movement now, and it is for a reason that we're moving towards composable architectural solutions, because that it makes sense. So and also the technology is there. It has made sense for decades, but the technology has not been there. So the full extent of the API economy is coming into play now, and we're seeing, you're just scratching the surface there. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Martin. Is that Harry? I guess it sounds a sensible thing. The technology will almost catch up with the concepts to some extent, and everybody will invariably go down there because it makes sense.
Well, I don't think that everybody will go down there because not every organization is the same as the Pimcore, for instance, or KLM Air France. That it depends, like what Morten says. Is it the organization? There's a lot of mid-market organizations that are doing international business all over the world. That headless is maybe not the right approach. So it is. So I'm not saying that I'm against headless. I'm just saying that we need to think clearly on what you're doing it. And I think in some instances also what Dietmar is saying, that we're looking more towards microservices and smaller building blocks and knitting them together, because that fits into the organization of the customer. But that is that is, in my opinion, a bigger headless. A next topic after headless, because headless in basic is just where's my delivery engine? How can I see it? Because if it's just a black box, then I must have some interface sometimes. So it's a complex topic, and just headless is it's not just microservices. After headless comes microservices, and then the organization. So it's a complex beast in that sense.
Yeah, and just to comment on that is that it's definitely not easy either, because many people might think that that going headless is easier, and many times it's you put in actually more effort up front, but the thing that is that you're building for change instead of building building a monolith. You're actually like you're putting in some more effort up front, and in order to give you some flexibility down the road. I think that's definitely true when it comes to headless. So it's not always just easy peasy to go down that road either.
Yeah, none of these things are easy, are they? Dietmar, you have you had anything to add on to that?
Yes. So basically, I would say that. And I know that from Gardner and Forrest. So product information management is currently still not cloud first. So only 50 or almost 50% of our customers that would like to have not on-premise, but cloud first PIM environments. And that's the big thing. If you have cloud first environments, then the result is headless. Because you have to, you have to play and arrange data, and you have to work with data. So, 3 years ago, never ever somebody was talking about cloud-based product information management. Everybody said, hey, on-premise, on their machines and everything. Now 50% say already, hey, a cloud-based solution is good. It's like CRM. So everybody in the current days talks about, when they talk about CRM, they talk about Salesforce and cloud-based systems. And the same thing will be happening also at PIM. And if you talk cloud, then you also have to talk headless in a typical way.
Yeah.
Because that's the way of data interchange. That's how it works to interchange data and collaborate.
Yeah, I guess
in the cloud.
If that's your finding with the cloud, yeah, it does suggest that these things are going to take quite a long time, and if the cloud adoption has not penetrated greater than
I tell you, we have been working 10 years and we have 110,000 clients. I have not thought that this would happen so fast.
Yeah.
So it really happens now. And therefore, these topics like Mach and so on are so important. We have to answer that because these are requirements.
Right. Lovely. Thank you, Dietmar. Has anybody got a final point on just this bit in terms of how they see future developments in headless going?
Can I ask? Can I put a quarter in it? I saw last week a news article that Commerce Tools acquired Frontastic. That triggered me. Headless is the hype. Why are they buying it? Commerce Tools wants to be headless, and now they're buying the front-end engine.
It's decoupled.
It's decoupled.
And it's decoupled.
And
I
it
would
just adds to
myself
their
buy them.
services. Sorry, it's just like for Commerce Tools, it is they have a set of services, and now frontend is a part of that. So in my mind, it makes total sense.
It's the ideal combination.
Yeah, now they only need a PIM. So they should look for someone in the Mac Alliance, I think. Yeah.
Right. Has anybody got any final comment before I sort of wrap things up? I guess we're all positive then, are we? Overall, just to conclude, we're all positive in terms of the fact we're heading down this route. Just take some organisations longer than others, I guess, at the end of the day. But your contemporaries, Odile, in terms of the retail sector, are you finding we've already described companies are all very, very different cultures and legacies. And
I think in retail there's a huge difference how long companies are already involved in e-commerce, because for e-commerce with retail you have the need for speed. With e-commerce you have the need for technology to support that speed. So I do think it's really, really important, but I also do see that there are quite some large old beasts that are just, facing too much complexity and trying to solve it with what I call the duct tape and tie wrap method, which in the end results in even bigger issues. So I think my final sort of like question to everyone that is attending this session and which is in the tech department is, please just, within your company, talk to, if you're not doing that already, to some of your business people and, understand their needs and their pains. Because I think then it's way more powerful to do this transition instead of sort of like, forcing it on them from a tech perspective. So that's my last question to everyone.
Great, thank you. Thank you. I think it's certainly my experience is writing about the retail sector. Yeah, it is amazing how you can talk about these advanced methodologies and concepts and things, but in reality, on the ground, lots of organisations are still using the sticking plaster and the tapes and what have you to get by. So yeah, I think that we'd recognise that from the retail sector. Right, lovely. Well, I think time has ticked along. Just in terms of wrapping things up, I'm afraid. I'd certainly like to thank each of our panel members for their excellent input on this roundtable. Certainly hope it's been informative to all of you on the call this afternoon. And it's certainly hopefully answered some of your questions, although it's probably prompted more questions, or certainly prompted in further investigation into the area. I'd also like to thank Stefan and PIM Vendors for putting this event together. As Stefan said, it's one of a series companies running, which I suspect will then be running into 2022. But I'll leave that one for Stefan to get in touch with you about. But on that note, I'd like to say thank you for taking part, and I will now hand you back over to Stefan.
Thanks, Lynn. Let me thank you for moderating this session, of course, and moderating our previous sessions. And indeed, it's part of a series that we are also taking into 2022. I started this session with the feeling that headless really was a buzzword, and that we have a lot of people buzzing around with the topic and not really getting there. But my opinion has changed, that we do really see an evolution, maybe already for 40 years, towards this API first and call it headless environment, and that it's just the age-old sort of answer to all questions when it comes to what is best for your organization. It's complicated, and it depends on your legacy, your team, your processes, how many IT capabilities you have, what your budget is, of course. And I think that is also the reason why an organization like PIM Vendors exists, to basically help people find the right PIM solution, whether that is headless or not, and find one that is the best fit for your organization. So if you are looking for a new PIM, head on over to pimvendors.com. We offer you a free and independent shortlist of the top 5 best matching PIM solutions that are out there. We have a lot of systems in our database, including all the speakers that were part of the panel today. For this session, for this roundtable, if you have any questions left, we had a lot of interaction in the chat, a lot of questions still unanswered. Please hop on over to the Q&A sessions in the Expo area. Everyone has a booth where you can hop in and ask questions through chat, or by even directly activating your webcam and your microphone and asking the panel member directly your question that you have. Let's give the speakers 5 minutes to hop on over to that area, and I hope to see you there. And if you're unable to make it today, I hope to see you in the new year or on our website, because we are going to do more roundtables and more events, and I hope to see you then. Thank you all for watching, and see you all on our site or on the sessions after the roundtable. Goodbye.